This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store, Forged Irish Stout, freebets.com. Delighted to be joined with the engine, Adam Morrallee, after yesterday's exploits. We're here in the Magnificent Seven Presser, but how are things, mate?
Very good. It's great to be back for Joe Joyce. It's absolutely brilliant.
I was going to say he is back fighting Kash Ali. I suppose a comeback fight for himself. When it comes to picking opponents, when it comes to choosing Kash Ali, what was the reason behind that?
No, we had a lot of different sorts of opponents. Kash Ali probably wasn't the first choice. Tom Schwartz was our first choice actually for the European title, if that was possible, but it never worked out. We wanted someone who was, well, Joe definitely did not someone who was southpaw. So we wanted an orthodox, taller fighter, good record. I think Kash Ali presents that.
When it comes to conversations with coming back for Joe, how difficult were those? How long do you think it took before he turned to you and said, you know, Adam, let's get me out again?
Oh, look, after Joe lost the second time to Zhang, I knew he wanted to get back out. There was never a moment that I thought he would quit boxing. So straight away, but it was, you know, it was September, end of September. He went into Christmas, came out of Christmas, and then as soon as he came out of Christmas, he wanted to fight, and he started camp probably just second week of January.
And when it came to people saying sort of, about Joe Joyce retire and this and that, when it was soon after the Zhilei Zhang rematch, people, you do get recency biased, and people sort of talk about when they're sort of in the heart of the moment. But when you hear things like that, sort of completely sort of deny those claims from those people.
It's just crazy, isn't it? I mean, you've seen it with AJ. He was written off after the Usyk losses, and then he's come back with 4 fights. 4, decent fights, no world level people in there, and now everyone thinks he's the best in the world again. Great matchmaking from Matchroom and 258, but the same thing will happen. People have got massive recency bias. Joe Joyce beat Joseph Parker, who's since beat Wilder and Zhang, and Joe Joyce is one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world.
What did you make of this rejuvenation of Joseph Parker since I suppose the Joe Joyce fight? It shows how styles can make fights when you have Joe Joyce who beat Joe Parker, Zhang beat Joyce, and then Parker beat Zhang. It shows sort of how crazy the heavyweight division can move around.
Yeah, I was just saying this on an earlier interview actually. Someone said to me, Joyce, Zhang, and Parker are like rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, literally.
And they can all beat each other. I think Joe Parker's benefited from activity. Joe Parker's a tremendous boxer. His fight against Joe Joyce was a fantastic fight, but Joe's just not a particularly great style for Joe Parker, and that's why that fight ended how it did. So, from my perspective, I mean, Joe Parker came back after the Joe Joyce loss against, I think it was Jack Massey, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
It didn't look great in that fight, but he's had that activity, worked really well with his coach. Different sort of fighter to Joe, but yeah, Zhang and Wilder on his resume now, I mean, it's unreal.
And I suppose when it does come to Joseph Parker, I did see a little post from S-Jam and Joe Joyce himself, Joe Parker versus Joe Joyce 2, let's get it on. Something that yourself would definitely an avenue that you'd explore?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love that fight. And I think, depending on what happens with Undisputed, that could be a fight for the WBO world title, because I think that if the belts do get vacated, then Joe Parker will become the champ.
I'm not looking past to Saturday night, but where do you think, you see how the heavyweight division is moving, especially with Saudi Arabia controlling all the pieces. How do you think Joe Joyce fits into that plan?
Look, there's either going to be a very, very big fight for Joe Joyce in the UK, because I think Saudi Arabia has meant that a lot of the oxygen of heavyweight division's gone out to Saudi. No real big heavyweight fights in the UK. Fabio Wardley, Fraser Clark, probably going to be the biggest one at the moment. So it could be a very big fight with Joe Joyce in the UK, which I push for, or we get Joe into the Saudi scene.
I suppose, keeping on the topic of heavyweight divisions, when it comes to Anthony Joshua, we saw how great he's rejuvenated. Do you take much from that rejuvenation from AJ, or would you say it's a lot of it is sort of from a lower level of competition?
No, I think that you have to praise the promotion and the management to brought him back against Jermaine Franklin. Didn't have a particularly brilliant performance, but then they've matched him really well. Brought out his Ben Davison as well in his corner now. And now AJ's right back at the top of the game, so I just think phenomenal from that team.
And when you look at between comparing him and a Tyson Fury, if that fight is down the line, do you feel like when you look at the levels between the two now, they are almost evenly matched in a sense, whereas that might not be the case 14, 15 months ago?
I think it'd be very interesting to see how Fury does against Usyk. I think AJ Fury was always going to be a brilliant fight anyway. I think both those guys, AJ's had 3 losses? I think those guys can have a large number of losses each, and AJ Fury is still an enormous fight because of what they bring and who they represent. the table. You know, Fury with the dad bod, AJ looks like he's carved out of stone. Just contrasts and juxtapositions at every point on that fight. Amazing fight.
One thing I did just want to lastly mention, because it has just crossed my mind, yesterday night we did see Martin Bakole tweet sparring footage of himself and Joe Joyce. Obviously that's about 20-30 seconds of the spar where Martin Bakole is obviously having, you know, quite a lot of success in that clip. Disappointed to see this leaked, and I suppose 30 seconds doesn't really tell the whole picture from a Sam Jones tweet that followed.
Yeah, I haven't seen Sam's tweet, but yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, I don't know why he leaked sparring footage. And you know, anyone can leak a part of any fight. You know, you could leak 15 seconds of a particular round where someone's on the back foot. In that spar, I was there. Joe got hit a lot by Bakole, but then as they moved through the spar, Joe got the better of him, and Martin Bakole ended up throwing up on his knees. Claimed it was a dodgy burger and left early. So he was supposed to do 10 rounds, and I think Martin did 7. He got battered by Joe Joyce. He'd never stand a chance against Joe Joyce. So I think it's poor.
And when you are considering certain sparring partners, Joe even said this in an interview I speak to him, and he said, you know, Martin seemed like a decent fella, and I wouldn't expect that from him. So are you sort of careful, you know, about who you pick when, you know, because they may have some tricks up the sleeve, as you with Bakole now?
Yeah, look, generally you don't spar people you're probably going to fight, for obvious reasons. Of course. Most people in boxing, tremendously honourable, everyone understands the code. You do want to film spars sometimes because you want to watch it back. Excuse me. So, you know, people ask to film spars, we let them because they want to watch it back. We're not like a team that, you know, descends on them and doesn't let them do anything, but we believe that people are generally honest and trustworthy. So I don't know who would do that. I can't tell you another person who would do that. I think it's just out of order.
Absolutely, and just sort of a final one from me. The SJAM stable moving quite nicely. We do see Guido Vianello, who obviously we saw yesterday fighting FA Jagbar here in Janae, Boston, in a very, very competitive and nice fight. And Nicola Bark obviously out next week, and then Florian Marco will be against Chris Congo the week after. So looking forward to all the moving parts at SJAM.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a really big 4 weeks coming up, particularly that fight. Guido Vianello, FA Jagbar. I think Guido's really going to announce himself on the scene. It's for the WBC Silver, so he gets a top 5 rating if he wins that.
Absolutely, you know, Adam always working hard, unlike me at football yesterday. So yeah, I appreciate your time, mate. Thank you. Cheers.